Next, right on time at 6:30, we have Earth Day was on Monday, so we have a whole week full of Earth Day activities, and we thought this would be an appropriate thing to have for our meeting. One of our own is Melanie Nesheim, who's Bill's wife, and she's part of Third Act New Hampshire. Excuse me. This is a national organization with working groups all over the country. It started in 2021 by the activist Bill McKibben. Many of you may know him. Melanie serves on its coordinating committee. She's a Cornell grad, a technical writer, a mom and a grandmom, excuse me, and a longtime volunteer in a number of organizations. That's all. Welcome, Melanie. Thank you. Thank you. And how's the volume here? Good. Okay, good. Well, like she said, my name is Melanie Nesheim. I'm glad to be here. I live in Holderness with my husband, Bill, who's our first one treasurer. And we've been members of PAD for about 4 years. So I want to thank Joyce Westland and the board of PAD for inviting me to tell you about a new partner organization, Third Act. Not only is Third Act new, but also I am new to the climate fight, and so I'm going to tell you my story, and then I'm going to tell you Third Act's story. Bill and I moved here from Windham, New Hampshire, 5 years ago in 2019. Back in Windham, after a short career in my 20s as a technical writer, I was an at-home mom and volunteer for 3 decades. In 2010, I started a program to help homeless families get back on their feet. The program was later absorbed into Family Promise of Greater Nashua and is still running now. I stayed involved for about 10 years, but then after our move here in 2019 and the end of chattel rearing and the beginning of parenting, that all shifted me away from this volunteer work, and the homeless chapter kind of came to a close. A natural goes. So my grandson's birth caused me to think more about the future. Living up here, it caused me to think more about nature. Both of those caused me to think more about climate change. I decided to find a climate change group to get involved with. This was a long time coming. I've loved the outdoors ever since I was a kid, and Bill and I spend a lot of time outside. To be honest, hearing about global warming in the 1980s and 90s, when people first got really vocal about it, well, it was too scary and too hard. I'll admit that. In 2006, for a birthday or Christmas, I can't remember, I got Bill the book, An Inconvenient Truth, written by our former Vice President Al Gore, and neither one of us actually had the courage to open it up and read it. I figured we could yell and do handstands out the wazoo about the science of human-caused global warming, but the powers of the world will not really pay attention until extreme weather actually started to happen. And then enough people might believe the warnings to make a difference. Well, we're there now. So this is our backyard. In December of 2008. We had an ice storm with power outages that made the national news. We were lucky enough to get our power back early on, but an elderly lady in our church was not so lucky. Her caregiver brought her to our house so that she could have a shower. She didn't walk very well, but we had a ground floor walk-in shower, and it happened to have a handheld shower head. I set up a chair inside the shower, I'll forget her shower, and Bill brought our generator over to their house and set it up and got it going, and we kept them supplied with gas until the power came back on later. So her caregiver was over the moon that they could help out. So our experience was part of an emerging bigger picture. This graph shows the number of United States billion-dollar disaster events across the country in each year: flooding, drought, severe storms. So the years go across the bottom, and up the side is the number of events, 3, 6, 9, 12 in each year. So 2008 is a year, and that begins a series of years where the number of billion-dollar disaster events on average doubled from the years prior. That was 16 years ago, but what about just 3 weeks ago? And I can't believe this was just 3 weeks ago, but our son sent us these pictures. He lives in Windham, New Hampshire now, and at first, I didn't process this picture. I saw, okay, a tree is down, the ring is closed. But then later, I looked at it closer and I saw, oh, there's wires going like this. And then later, I studied it and I went, oh, there's a pole that goes to here and it breaks off, and the broken pole is hanging here, hanging off the wires. So it was crazy. So he was without power for 40 hours, and our daughter and Elliot Name was without power for 36 hours. We lived on Little Swan Lake, and this winter was the latest freeze over of the lake ever. It froze over well after Christmas. And it was the earliest ice out ever, where by March 20, the lake was completely, Little Swan anyway, was completely open. For the first time ever, we saw almost no ice fishing shacks and almost no snowmobiles on the lake. It was kind of eerie. So I'm wondering, does anyone want to share their own kind of climate change experiences?
Sure. Along that line, I grew up in Laconia on Poggish Bay.
Can everyone hear him?
I grew up in Laconia on Poggish Bay, like Winnipesaukee, and I remember the ice being a foot thick and chopping holes and seeing cars driving on the ice. Yeah. I don't see that anymore.
Wow. Yeah.
I saw a dump truck on the ice once.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? No. Jason?
I've been going to inverse because I originally grew up in Arizona, in the Phoenix metropolitan area, and I'm still in really communication with my family out there. And this last summer, we had the most consecutive days over 110 degrees weather in the area, and some really long stretches without rain. And growing up in Arizona, you could generally depend on one stinging season in June and July. In August, it bring in storms, and it just talked about how they just weren't coming this year. And so that's the inverse of it.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Yeah.
Back in the mid-'60s, I remember times when we had 7 feet of snow on the ground, and the notch was closed. You couldn't go get to Cannon Mountain, and things have just never been that way since.
Yeah. Wow. And then as soon 7 bed. So, anyone else? One more? All right, well, thank you. Well, last year, I decided I'd rather go down kicking and screaming than nothing. I'll go down at the planet kicking and screaming rather than do nothing. So what I really want to do is preserve later for my 2 little grandsons, and my daughter will probably have children, so there'll probably be more grandchildren to come. So in 2023, last year, I cast around for a climate group. I went to NHPR's first annual 5 Degrees Climate Summit at UNH. I think they haven't had it yet, but the second one is coming up. I briefly connected with the New Hampshire chapter of the National Citizens Climate Lobby. I got lost in some acronyms. I heard people who've been at this for decades, and they used the lingo that I didn't know. I discovered that the tough thing about getting involved in climate work is there are many causes, not just one, and there are many good solutions, and they all need to happen, and there's a lot of lingo to learn. I felt very green, and I still feel green because there's so much to learn that no one person can know all of it, but I did find a climate group. So last May, Bill McKibben gave a talk in Plymouth. He was one of those climate activist names that I'd heard about, or Mrs. the 2000s. He wrote one of the first books on global warming. In 2008, he started a climate group, 350.org. He named it that way because 350 parts per million is the most carbon dioxide we can have in the atmosphere without causing severe weather events. We're now at 400. Bill McKibben's talk in Plymouth was on my birthday, May 11, 2023. So my birthday present to myself was to hear from one of the big players in climate work, live and in person. His talk scared the heck out of me as far as what's happening to the rest of the planet. The next few slides are some recent examples of how climate change is causing chaos. The San Bernardino Mountain in California, February 2023, 80,000 people trapped by 10 feet of snow, 85 miles east of LA. This is a photo of the Herford Glacier in Disenchantment Bay, Alaska. It's Cal Bay, or Breaky Long. It's one of the most popular stops on Alaskan places. Why are melting glaciers so harmful to the climate? The glacier's white surfaces reflect the sun's rays, keeping the Earth's climate mild. Fewer glaciers means that more heat is absorbed by land and oceans. Melting glaciers also cause a rise in sea level. Sea level is projected to rise 10 to 12 inches along U.S. coastlines over the next 30 years. The best case scenario is that we lose less than 50% of glaciers by 2100, the year 2100, if we meet the Paris Climate Agreement of no more than 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit temperature rise of the Earth from pre-industrial temperatures. But the world is currently on track to increase temperatures by 4.9 degrees Fahrenheit, which means a projected 68% of glaciers will disappear by 2100, the year 2100. And what is under all that melted glacial ice? Beneath the land surface is permafrost, previously frozen land, packed with thousands of years of life, from humans to woolly mammoths to ancient plant matter, all exposed as it's no longer ice covered. Scientists found a perfectly preserved wolf pup from 57,000 years ago in this area of the Yukon's melting permafrost. As the organic material in the permafrost thaws and decomposes, carbon and methane gases are released into the atmosphere. So more on New Hampshire. As you all know, much of Hampton, New Hampshire was underwater on Sunday, March 10th, 2024, due to an intense storm that brought heavy rain and high tides. This is the fourth such heavy storm hitting New Hampshire and Maine since December 2023. Since last December. Sea levels have risen anywhere from 8 inches to over a foot in the Northeast since 1900. There's been a 12% annual increase in precipitation in New Hampshire over the past 120 years, most of that since 1971. The worst events occurred near the coast and in the White Mountains. And the average temperature in New Hampshire, which, we back that up by what we saw this year, the average temperature has increased over 2 degrees Fahrenheit since 1901. And of that temperature increase, most of it has occurred since 1971. So this past December to February was the warmest winter on record for New Hampshire, with an average temperature of 28 degrees, almost 9 degrees warmer than the previous average winter between 1896 and 2000. So why are these climate crises happening? I love this shot. The sky is not simply a vast, limitless expanse as it appears to us when you stand on the ground and look up. In reality, there is just a thin shell of atmosphere surrounding the planet. Former Vice President Al Gore explains that we are spewing 162 million tons of human-made global warming pollution into the thin shell of our atmosphere every 24 hours, as if it were an open sewer. What's the effect of all this pollution? It creates, as you know, a kind of blanket around the Earth, trapping heat, causing our planet to overheat at an unprecedented rate. So going back to Bill McKibben's talk last May, I was feeling about the way you probably are feeling right now. But as scary as all this is, Bill McKibben's talk also made me believe that we could fix the climate situation. In 2021, he started a new climate organization called Third Act. Your first act is birth to adulthood. Your second act is raising children, developing a career or goal. And your third act is after that, after, say, age 60. People age 60 and older. This group holds 70% of the nation's wealth and has had the time to develop exactly the resources, the skills, the networks to address the climate problem. Let's not leave it for the younger generations to solve, McKibben said. If we can mobilize those age 60 and over to get into the climate fight, we can get a lot done. That made a lot of sense to me. So Third Act New Hampshire here is the local chapter or working group of the nationwide Central Third Act organization. So we watched Third Act New Hampshire just last November, and I got involved in September, and then I joined the coordinating committee in January. The coordinating committee is like their board. One reason I chose Third Act is that their focus is on developing community among us as we were, as well as on climate change. And to that end, we often refer back to our working principles to guide our interactions. Working on climate problems can get overwhelming, so folks are encouraged to back off, take care when they need to, and then rest when they need to and jump back in later on. There's a lot of kindness around that, and I think that's what keeps us energized to keep going. So how are we fighting global warming? Central Third Act is engaged in 3 campaigns: advance fossil-free finance, democratize energy, and uplifting voting and democracy. The local working groups engage in activities that support national or central's nationwide efforts, but we also work locally within our state. So first I'll talk about fossil-free finance. So what's the biggest source of global warming? Burning fossil fuels. Over 75% of heat-trapping gas emissions are from burning fossil fuel, coal, oil, and gas. And over 90% of all carbon dioxide emissions are from burning fossil fuels. How can we influence the fossil fuel industry to dial it back on burning stuff and go forward with sustainable energy instead? Follow the money. As individuals, we can reduce our carbon footprint with our personal financial decisions. The richest 10% of Americans account for 40% of US climate emissions. Why is that? Partly it's their financial investments. Big banks and financial institutions with the wealthier with their money have huge investments in fossil fuels. So this, I know you can't read all that, so I'm going to tell you what it says. This chart shows bank financing the 2,300 companies that are active across the fossil fuel life cycle, whether it's building the pipes or oil extraction, fracking, pipelines, coal mining, and more. So there are 60 banks from all over the world in this list, but just the top 20 fossil fuel funders are listed here. So you can see that large US banks are the top 4 banks funding fossil fuels by a lot. They are JP Morgan Chase is at the top, then Citibank, then Wells Fargo, and then number 4 is Bank of America. And it's to the tune of billions of dollars per year. Morgan Chase in 2020 was 51,000. I want to say 51,300 billion, but I know that's still 51,300 billion is to be supposed to say. The numbers are so big, they're hard to wrap your head around. And then this gets the total of what passed over these 5 years that was invested, 316 trillion to the top bank, JP Morgan. So this graphic from Central Third Act is a bit busy, but it kind of tells the story. You probably have some of your money in a bank up left, or you use a bank-backed credit card. And then in the middle, banks use your money and the money of other people to make loans to others, including loaning trillions of dollars to the fossil fuel industry. So it works out that if you had $62,500 of money in the mainstream banking system, that is producing more carbon than all of the carbon-producing activities of the average American for 6 months. Let's say this is down in the bottom. So the idea 70% of the country's financial assets belong to people age 60 and over. Together, we can make decisions about where we invest our money. We can use that wealth to apply pressure to banks to stop funding fossil fuels. So Third Act's aim is to encourage everyone to move their money away from these banks. We do that by moving our own money out of the top 4 banks and into a bank that does not finance the fossil fuel industry, and by writing a letter to the bank CEO telling why we move. 3 of the top 4 dirty banks, as we call them, Chase, Citibank, and Wells Fargo, don't have much presence in New Hampshire. But the 4th one, Bank of America, is here. So if you bank with them or have a credit card with them, please consider switching banks and write to them to say why you're switching. So together we can apply pressure to the big banks to stop the climate chaos. Third Act Central organized a nationwide bank protest on March 21, 2023. And that's across the top. In solidarity, folks stood outside Bank of America branch in Concord. That's the top photo. That's right in Concord. So that group of people were the genesis of Third Act New Hampshire, which launched only 5 months ago. But ever since that first bank protest, Third Act has had a presence every Tuesday in front of that same branch. We eat Tuesdays from noon to 118 Store Street, in Concord. The bank's president knows we're there, and we stand on public property, not Bank of America's land, so it's all legal. You're welcome to show up and join us any Tuesday at noon. The Third Act website has tools and helps for how to move your money to a better bank, which is this website. And that QR code takes you to, which does that take me to? Oh, that takes you to the Banking on Our Future pledge, which is another way to apply pressure. You can go to Central's website and take the Banking on Our Future pledge that you plan to move your money. And then Central can, they're gathering thousands of gleanings so that they can tell banks, all these people all across the country want you to get out of fossil fuels. So Bill and I looked into our banking. I'm like, okay, how are we doing? We use Citizens Bank for our checking, credit cards, and some of our savings. We investigated where Citizens invest its money, and thankfully we found no fossil fuel companies and not even a whiff of carbon dioxide. We had our long-term retirement investments with a ESG or environmental, sustainable, and governance-oriented investment firm, and they avoid fossil fuel companies for us. The rest of our retirement savings might be involved in funding fossil fuels. We don't know, it's not clear. But we have made sure a big chunk of our money is not. So it's not perfect, and that is a classic situation in a climate fight. But if you can do 80%, don't think yourself if you can't do 100%, because 80% is still way bigger than 0%. So we lean on Third Act working principles that we're all in this together, and that we need to take care and be kind to ourselves. Be the best we can. So Bill and I have a story around this. Bill and I recently went on a cross-country ski trip organized by the Appalachian Mountain Club for its top donors. About 35 people went to the Northwoods of Maine and cross-country skied for 4 days. The CEO and the CFO, the ANC, the Appalachian Mountain Club, were both on the trip and gave presentations in the evenings about the club's mission and its vision to become carbon neutral in all of its activities by the year 2050. So during Q&A, I took the opportunity to explain briefly about the top 4 fossil fuel funding banks. I named them Chase, Citi, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. And then I asked the CFO, where does the Appalachian Mountain Club keep its endowment funds? He said, JP Morgan Chase, and the whole room erupted. But as it turns out, it's not as bad as all that. So later, I followed up with a letter to the CEO and president, Nicole Zussman. She looked into it more closely and got back to me. And she reported that over a quarter of the AMC's endowment funds are now with ESG-oriented managers. Yeah, AMC's initial policy target was 17%, and they're already past that. They're over 25%, and they are continuing to evaluate new ESG targets in the near future. And as for commercial banking, so the AMC runs a big hospitality business because they have Huts, they have Rockford Center, they have Island Center, Joe Gotch Lodge, and Pink and Notch, all of that. So for commercial banking, they use, most of their deposits are with Citizens Bank, and significant deposits are with Primary Bank, which is a local bank. So the local banks and credit unions tend to be good places. They don't get into the fossil fuel thing. So AMC does use Chase for volunteer chapter banking needs, given their large geographic footprint, because it greatly reduces AMC's administrative burden. But yet, Nicole, the president, said, my information from Third Act has given them food for thought, and they will have further discussions around this. So I was really happy to hear all of that. So getting large organizations, as well as individuals, out of the big four banks is definitely on our list. So given that Third Act is only 5 months old, we're really just starting to figure out how to push this forward. So the subgroup that's working on the fossil-free finance campaign, there's 7 of us. We met 2 weeks ago with an amazing guy named Janie Henn, who Janie Henn co-founded 350.org with Bill Piven back in the 2000s. He was in college at the time. Bill was in his 40s at the time. So he was just dynamic to listen to, and he gave us tons of ideas about how to go forward, but he could use more help. So the next fossil-free finance meeting is May 16th. We meet on Zoom, so anybody can come, and if you're interested, please let me know so you can use more help. So I've talked about the advanced fossil-free finance campaigns, and now let's look at democratizing energy. Democratizing energy is about advocating for state policies that accelerate a transition to wind and solar power. We oppose policies that can worsen climate change. We keep an eye on what's going on in the state legislature. The campaign leader is connected with other kind of organizations in the state, and he lets us know when to submit public comment or write to our reps. For example, and I hope someone here knows what the result was here, but the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission recently scheduled a hearing on net metering, and we submitted public comment to it. Net metering allows electric companies to purchase the extra electricity generated by your home solar array. People rely on it to recover the cost of installing solar. At present, there's not a consistent policy across all electric companies in New Hampshire. So Bill and I, our electric company, New Hampshire Electric Co-op, is great because we earn back about 75% on the electricity we sell them. But not all the companies offer that. So many local climate groups and the electric companies as well have been working with the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission to agree on a policy. And because the PUC is very conservative leaning right now, there was concern that they might just do away with net metering or set the payback on electricity so low as to be used. So for the most recently scheduled hearing, which was in March, we got a bunch of people to submit comment in favor of net metering because it encourages the switch to solar power. As it happens, this hearing was postponed to a later date, but at least the PUC knows what the public wants, and the climate groups know that we have their back. The other big thrust of democratizing energy of that campaign is getting the word out about what the Inflation Reduction Act can do for people. This is the largest clean energy investment America has ever made. We want to make sure people know they can use tax credits and upfront discounts to make the transition to a less polluting and more energy efficient life. The Inflation Reduction Act makes this financially easier to accomplish. So the federal tax credits for home energy improvements are available right now for anyone, so they can reduce the net cost by 30% of installing heat pumps for space heat or for cooling, installing heat pumps for water heating, insulation, Energy Star rated windows, installing solar, battery storage, or geothermal heat pumps, or installing an electric vehicle charger up to $1,000. Federal tax credits for electric vehicle purchases are also available now. The previous slide was not income dependent. This slide, there are some income, you can see some income qualifications, but anyway, there's federal tax credits to purchase a new or used electric vehicle, and some of the dealers have arranged to convert your tax credit into a price cut for you when you buy it. New Hampshire's in the process of applying for federal grant funds for consumer rebates for low and moderate income households. So this is not available yet, but it will become available fall to late 2024. Point of sale rebates for qualifying electrification purchases, for heat pumps, electric stove, cooktop or oven, heat pump clothes dryer, and then efficiency rebates to upgrade single-family and multi-family homes. So all of the details, you don't have to frantically write all this down because I have a handout with a little piggy bank there, and all of these details are on the handout and the links to go find more information and specifics. So on the red table there, so help yourselves after. Rewiring America is a group that provides on their website an IRA calculator to let you see your estimated personal benefit from the IRA rebates. So this, that QR code takes you straight to the calculator. Oh, they also have a guide, the Electrified Home Guide, to help you understand all the steps you need to take to change your power to electricity in your home and transportation. Alrighty, so we talked about the fossil-free finance campaign, you talked about democratized energy, and now we're going to take a look at uplift voting and democracy. So Bird Act had its first postcarding party just a couple weeks ago. We sent 100 postcards to voters. We partnered with other organizations, such as the Environmental Voter Project, to help them get postcards out to increase voting among climate allies. Legislative action. This was the thing I hope someone knows something about. We keep an eye on what bills are really in the New Hampshire House and Senate related to voting. You're probably aware that presently, if you forget your ID and need to register on voting day, you can sign an affidavit verifying your residence. It's called affidavit voting. And about 2,000 people in New Hampshire voted that way the last round. This bill, House Bill 1569, would disallow affidavit voting. It passed the House very narrowly. And just yesterday, this bill went to committee in the Senate. And so Third Act's uplift voting leader sent out an email to our volunteers to get people to send their opinion to the Senate committee that this bill should not pass. And she made it easy to do that. So Monday night, ahead of the hearing, I sat down and dashed off the email to the committee. And with the committee met yesterday, so I don't know where the bill is at right now. I'm hoping it doesn't pass. The senior to senior voter registration. We engage in high school and college voter registration programs. Last Friday, we manned a table at Keene State College to help students get information on how to register to vote. And of course, conversation canvassing. So some of you may remember conversation canvassing from 2 years ago. Some of you were part of the Grafton County. So at that time, Grafton County Democrats, Ann Garland and Martha Rich, they were doing a pilot program training people on conversation canvassing. And I know that some of us here did it. Well, since then, they've formed a nonprofit conversation canvassing NH, and they've streamlined the training and they're offering it to any group that wants it, and it's really, really good. So Third Act promotes this training and provides access to it. So we then tell people to connect with their local town Democrat groups like CAD and have them provide a list of appropriate doors to knock on. So we don't want to knock on diehard Trumper doors, but if CAD can get a list of people that are in the middle, you know, that might be encouraged by having someone listen to their concerns, connect with me about that, and I can connect with Third Act about that, and maybe you can get people out more on the doors. I'd like to do it. I took the training recently, and it's very excellent, and I hope some other PAD members do it also. So, Katia? So, where are we at? Tonight, I talked about my journey becoming a global warming fighter. We've looked at the bad news. We've talked about Third Act and the pre-campaigns. And now we're going to look at some recent climate successes and what we can do. So you've probably heard that the last two remaining coal-fired power plants in New England, both in New Hampshire, are set to close by 2025 and 2028. This ends the use of fossil fuels that supplied electricity to our region for over 50 years. Done. Closing the Merrimack and Showa stations makes New England the second region in the country, after the Pacific Northwest, to stop burning coal for electricity and stop burning coal, period. These plants will be converted to solar farms and battery storage for offshore wind turbines. Environmental groups waged a 5-year legal battle to make this happen. So this was just a huge win, I did. So another recent climate success, Central Third Act, along with other climate groups, has been getting people to put pressure on Costco to switch its credit card. Costco offers a credit card to its customers, but they're with Citibank. So we want them to switch their credit card to a bank that does not fund the fossil fuel industry. Costco is the third largest retailer in the United States, and that's why Third Act chose to go represent it. In January, Third Act delivered a climate petition with 40,000 signers to Costco just ahead of the virtual shareholder meeting, calling on Costco to cut ties with Citi if it won't stop burning fossil fuels. Over several days, Third Actors engaged in creative displays, such as a mobile billboard that circled Costco headquarters and giant scissors cutting up Costco's credit card. And because we're friendly, and because a new CEO recently came on board, they also put in the sign saying, "Congratulations on becoming CEO, Ron," and they congratulating him on his position. So previously, the CEO of Costco had not responded to any of Third Act's comments. I mean, we've been pushing this for a couple of years now. But this time, the new CEO responded. He says they've been in discussions with Citi about their carbon reduction plans for the future. And while that's not enough, I mean, what we really want is for them to switch banks, but it's not enough, but the fact that Costco's CEO finally acknowledged the issue of fossil fuel funding is huge. So another slightly complicated story. Last November, at the request of Third Act Central, I wrote a letter to the Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, and it said, companies are seeking approval to build 20 liquefied natural gas, or LNG, export terminals, mostly along the Gulf of Mexico, over the next few years. But 7 export terminals already exist, and the U.S. is already the biggest exporter of natural gas on Earth, with LNG exports expected to double by the end of this decade. The emissions associated with these new terminals, additional terminals, will be as large as that from every home, factory, and car in the European Union. These emissions will wipe out every bit of progress the U.S. has made on reducing carbon dioxide and methane since 2005. So Third Act, along with other environmental groups, planned 3 days of nonviolent civil disobedience at the Department of Energy in February. Several folks on Third Ave, New Hampshire made plans to drive down together and participate. Getting arrested wasn't too likely, but they were prepared for it anyway, just in case. They were scheduled to leave on Monday. The Friday prior, the Biden-Harris administration issued a temporary pause on granting new export licenses until environmental standards for export terminals could be put into place. This was huge. We don't know how much the upcoming nonviolent action, which was well publicized at that time, had to do with this decision, but the timing was very interesting. The nonviolent action in DC was canceled because what we were asking for happened. A pause on new export licenses for LPG terminals. Predictably, the fossil fuel industry is up in arms about it, but this was a huge win for the client. So, Dartmouth College has divested fossil fuel investments from its endowment. And globally, 40.76 trillion is the total value of all the global institutions that have divested from the fossil fuel industry. 16.4% of all educational institutions globally have divested, 35% of all faith-based organizations, and 10.9% of government institutions globally have divested from the fossil fuel industry. Calls for divestment do succeed. Well, some more good news. So what can you do to help fight global warming? I have a few suggestions. And this slide is on a handout on the red table, so don't worry about jotting down all these websites and whatnot. So number one is join Third Act in Yorkshire. Once a month, we hold statewide meetings by Zoom for all members. We send out a monthly newsletter to keep everyone updated on what they can do. And this QR code, if you point your phone's camera at it, will take you to the web page where you sign up. You do have to click ending and then click join working group. The second one is sign the Dating on Our Future pledge on the Central Third Act website. Remember how they delivered 40,000 signatures to Costco? Well, that's what this is about. We elected thousands of people committing to switch to non-fossil fuel lending banks. And we realize it takes time and effort to move money to a new bank. It's a bit of a pain. But meanwhile, your name added to many other names on this list on the pledge will be used to influence banks. And so the third one is learn ways to move your money. The Third Act website has guidance for how to do this. I got link. The fourth one is write to our U.S. senators and tell them you endorse their support of the Fossil Free Finance Act. And I'm sure Gigi and Bang has them already endorse it, but it's nice for them to know that, we're behind them on that. This bill would require big banks to cut their financing of greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by the year 2030, and to stop all financing of emissions by 2050. So this is very cool. Number 5, join us for visibility outside Bank of America on any Tuesday, 118 Sloor Street, Concord, lead the one. We provide the signs. Number 6, see how the Inflation Reduction Act can help to electrify. So check out the piggy bank handout. And number 7, spread the word about the Inflation Reduction Act benefits. So take a second handout and give it to someone. Number 8, write postcards to voters who encourage voting for climate-friendly people. Number 9, engage in conversation canvassing. Go to their website and that tells you how to take the training. It consists of watching 10 short videos on your own time, and then you attend a 1-hour Zoom to practice what you learn. And the next scheduled one is May 7th at 7 p.m. So you have the videos before May 7th, and then you go. And also, coordinate with Third Act, help us Third Actors to know which doors to knock on and knock with us. And most importantly, number 10, do whatever Joyce tells you to do to get President Biden reelected. So, probably the White House would tank all of our climate progress, and they can't let that happen. So, we'll let it. Royce Simmons, yes.
Now, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
I think a lot of us here are probably on Amazon Prime, and the credit card that it uses Chase.
really.
It is. And I mean, how many people is it have Amazon Prime?
And they made it enough.
I do. It's a Chase card. So what is the pressure Amazon Prime?
I thought it was a synergy band. I had mine's with synergy.
Oh, maybe you get to pick where your Amazon card
I
goes?
don't know. Yeah.
Okay, just on that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Jake's or Synergy, what's up with that? Okay,
And I'd
Yeah.
like to also add in that LL Bean's credit card is with Citibank.
yeah,
And that's like totally counter to their image.
yeah. So that would be something to do, to write to them and put pressure on them. I think they went after Costco though, because it's so big and nationwide. I mean, here LLB means more because it's in our backyard, right? We have one Costco in all of New Hampshire, so yeah, I don't tend to push the Costco thing because it doesn't have as much meaning, but going after LLB would be a good idea. And I'm making love and LLB. Okay. Fran,
I just want to, one that's all in the section that you didn't cover that I thought someone might have been interested in is that, so you know about the Chandler's Nolan sports, people still the race crap out there, it's by 16 and it's like pot, and they're putting out in the league on make that electric lasting our expo. And they're going to let them try driving some of these vehicle hypers of electricity. One that's very sticky racetrack. Oh, this is Dave just 912. And if you just look up your electric car expo, then I think you could find the issue. But then another whole issue is, you know, what do you drive? You have to use the,
right. This is Tamworth? Tamworth?
yeah, we had John.
Yeah, we're actually, last weekend and this coming weekend, Third Act has had a presence at several, like sustainability fair in Nashua and an electric vehicle fair in Merrimack. Next Saturday, we have one Sunday, we're in West Lebanon at an electric vehicle fair. So, yeah, that's cool. Any other thoughts? Thanks, Judy.
Goodness.
Well, to close, we're all in this together. Let's act joyfully to preserve this to then.